Honourable Anne Tolley.
Mr Speaker, I have to start today by saying that I am absolutely appalled at the determination by the opposition to play politics with this nation's security. It's based on untruths, it's based on scaremongering, and it's been based on what you could only describe as political tin hat mentality. Mr Speaker, this bill clarifies that police can lawfully request the GCSB's assistance to intercept private communications in New Zealand. But this assistance is limited to instances where police has the lawful authority to intercept, but doesn't have the technical capability to undertake that interception. This is supported by the Policing Act, which gives police the ability to seek assistance from any person or organisation that may be able to give effect to a lawful interception authority. Now, Mr Speaker, as Minister of Police, I am well aware of the threats to our Kiwi way of life from international organised crime. In fact, we would not be exaggerating to say that organised crime has never been more pervasive, more powerful and more complex. A UN report published in April this year estimated the cost of transnational organised crime in East Asia and the Pacific to be in the region of $90 billion US. $90 billion US. With counterfeit goods, illegal wood products, heroin and methamphetamine the top money spinners. Now, the drug runners, of course, they don't need to sell their evil wares face-to-face anymore. They don't have to dodge the police on the streets. They simply advertise it on the internet. People troll the internet for the drug of their choice. They order it and can expect to have it delivered to their door. And this activity is growing and developing rapidly. And although our established monitoring systems continue to provide good insight into the established and traditional drug markets, and in the Dominion today there was another successful raid based on very good information, the speed and the complexity of these new developing markets are making the monitoring increasingly difficult and will continue to decrease in effectiveness as we all struggle to understand and stay ahead of this very lucrative industry. So the challenges for our law and border enforcement agencies are huge, yet lawful interception is used to solve serious crimes such as murders and kidnapping, aggravated robberies, child exploitation and drug distribution. Interception of private communications in real time is currently used to investigate, disrupt and prosecute serious criminal activity, including organised crime, and to inform the response to emergencies like armed offenders situations or kidnappings. As such, the GCSB's assistance in a select number of investigations can be absolutely critical for police to effectively respond to and solve serious crime. Interception allows the detection, disruption and proof of organised criminal activity, such as the illegal importation of drugs into New Zealand. In 2005, the New Zealand police were advised by an overseas police force about an organised crime group smuggling drugs into New Zealand. So they launched an investigation. They found a group of about 12 people working together over a number of months, opening bank accounts and storage units around New Zealand, quite legitimate activities, while also placing international orders for shipments of paint and cement and establishing relationships with local drug dealers. Police were granted interception warrants. The information that they got from those led to 2 suspicious containers being seized. One, the shipment of paint, was found to contain 95 kilograms of methamphetamine, and the shipment of cement contained 150 grams of pseudoephedrine, which is a precursor for methamphetamine. So the interception allowed the suspicious shipments to be identified in time and allowed those receiving the containers and distributing the drugs locally to be identified and arrested. And in fact, it provided such strong evidence of the organised criminal activity that all the accused were found guilty, and a number of them even pleaded guilty before the trial. Mr. Speaker, the internet provides a virtual marketplace for illicit goods such as drugs and guns. It enables global virtual networking and social interaction between criminals, between international gangs and that ever-increasing group of sophisticated criminal entrepreneurs who are pretty savvy operators, ready, willing and able to exploit the online environment. They are becoming increasingly active selling fake investments via the internet to unsuspecting New Zealanders, because mass marketing fraudulent schemes on the internet is very easy, they're invisible and they never have to set foot in the country. They steal personal information and personal identification in order to commit frauds or internet crimes. And what of the child pornography and exploitation rings, that global network of perversion? International organised crime makes a huge amount of money from this obscene business. New Zealanders want the GCSB to be watching the activities of these international gangs of thugs who make money from the misery, exploitation and torture of innocent children. Now, the Australian government has just published a report by their Australian Crime Commission on organised crime, and it shows that in the past 2 years, globalised organised crime is pushing hard into Australia and New Zealand, stretching the abilities of law agencies to keep pace with syndicates now threatening national security. The report states, quote, "Organised crime is inextricably linked to international organised crime. Serious and organised criminals operating in Australia necessarily have international links to facilitate their activities, particularly the movement of illicit goods into Australia, and overseas-based organised criminals actively target Australia. This means that strong and trusted partnerships with overseas law enforcement agencies are now more fundamental to combating organised crime than they have ever been." Mr. Speaker, why do the opposition think that New Zealand is in any different place from Australia, under threat from international organised crime? Finally, Mr. Speaker, I'd want to remind this House that despite the opposition's outrageous scaremongering, interception of private communications are an important tool to combat serious crime. In addition, it can identify and rule out innocent people. And there was another case where a child, just listen, Mr. Little, and you might learn something. A child was murdered in 2005. Police's investigations had narrowed down the number of suspects, but were not able to further establish whether the neighbour or a member of the child's own family had been responsible. Police were granted an interception warrant. Interception enabled police to rule out the involvement of the child's family. The investigation was then focused on a neighbour who was later brought to trial and found guilty of the crime. Without the use of interception, the investigation would have been greatly prolonged and much more painful for the child's family. Mr. Speaker, I've sat through all the speeches in this House today, and I do not understand why the opposition is quite prepared to sit on its hands, demand a lengthy inquiry, another talkfest that the Labour Party is so well known for. They love to talk about this stuff, but when it comes to actually doing something, they have been bereft in the 9 years that they were in power, while New Zealanders are at risk from the menace of organised crime, from the drug runners, from the scammers, from the child exploiters and from the hacktivists. Mr. Speaker, this is a very sensible bill. It strengthens and it clarifies the activity of this essential service to protect our New Zealand citizens, our New Zealand companies and, most importantly of all, our New Zealand way of life.
The debate has now concluded and the question is that the motion be agreed to. Those of that opinion will say aye. Contrary, no. The ayes have it. Party vote. The clerk will conduct a party vote.
New Zealand National. 59 votes in favour. New Zealand Labour.
34 votes opposed.
Green Party.
14 opposed.
New Zealand First.
7 votes opposed.
Māori Party.
2 votes opposed.
Mana.
1 opposed.
ACT New Zealand.
1 vote in favour.
Honourable Peter Dunn.
1 vote in favour.
Brendan Horan.
1 opposed.
Any other votes? Yeah.
The ayes are 61, the noes are 59. The motion is agreed to.
Government Communications Security Bureau and related legislation amendment bill, second reading.
This bill is set down for committee stage next sitting day. I understand it's the point of order. Louise Upston.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I seek leave to table an email referred to by the Honourable Stephen Joyce answering on behalf of the Prime Minister in question time earlier today.
Leave is sought for that purpose. Is there anyone opposed to that course of action? There appears none. Leave is granted. Now, I understand that it is the government's intention to introduce an impress supply bill.
Supply, second for 2013-14 bill, introduction.
The bill is set down for first reading.